Okay, so our second problem is going to be, let's factor x squared plus 10x plus 24. So we've got x squared plus 10x plus 24. What we're trying to do is factor it, so we're going backwards so that it looks like this. Remember that even to do this problem in the calculator, you're going to have to know that I need to think of things that multiply to give me 24, but add to give me 10. Now, in this lesson, it is going to be important that you're able to recognize that there's nothing in front of this x squared. In the next lesson, there's going to be something in front of x squared, which is going to change this a bit, okay? But nothing's in front of this x squared, so we can work this problem this way. So here's what we would do. We're going to think of things that multiply to be 24 and add to 10. So just going to start at the beginning. I know that I could do 1 times 24. A lot of you could come up with this just by thinking about it, especially if you know your multiplication tables. But 1 times 24 is 24. 2 times 12 is 24. 3 times 8, that's 24. 4 times 6, that's 24. And that's probably all of them. I know it has to be positive because we've got a positive 10. So do any of these combinations, 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, we want to know, do those add to be 10? Well, that's going to be, the first one's 25. So I took that one. 2 plus 12 gets me 14. Well, that's not 10. 3 plus 8 gets me 11. That's not 10. But 4 plus 6 gives me 10, which is what I'm looking for. So that's the combination that's going to work. Those two numbers multiply to give me 24 and add to give me 10. So I know the answer is 4 and 6. So I could go ahead and write that right here. Now, how do I use the calculator to find that answer? This time I'm going to show you 2 separate ways to do this problem. When we go to the calculator and we go to our screen, we're going to type in y equals 24 divided by x. Where I'm getting that because my last constant term is a 24. The second, so this is how we would come up with this on the calculator. The second thing that I would do is go to my y equals and type in 24 divided by x plus x. Everybody understand where I'm coming up with that? Okay, so now I'm going to my calculator screen and typing that stuff in. I'm trying to find, remember that we want this 10. That was another important number. So we're going to go back to y equals. We're going to type in our new problem that we said was going to be 24 divided by x. And then the other one is 24 divided by x plus x, okay? We really want to look at our table. So I'm going to hit second graph to look at my table, and I'm going to keep in mind that I needed 2 things that multiplied to give me 24 and add to give me 10, okay? So here's the answer. This row right here where you see the 10, that's what you're looking for. When is the answer 10 on the Y2 category? So then you look at the 2 numbers that gave you that, the 4 and the 6, and that's where you find the answer. Remember, you can scroll up and down if you're not able to find the answer, but you're looking for that 10 to be in this category, the thing that adds to be 10, and that was 4 and 6 if you can't think of them by yourself, okay? So that's one way to get the answer. Now, y'all please listen. So go to your calculator This is probably an easier way to get the answer. So you go to your apps button. Your apps button is kind of diagonal from the alpha button. If you do not have this app on your calculator, I can add it if you bring your calculator to me. But I think even the ones that are on the phone app right now are working with this, but we're going to go to apps. Okay, and you want to find this app that says PLYSMLT2, Poly Simulator 2. It's 9 on this calculator. So I'm going to go down to 9 and I'm going to hit enter. Okay, and it's going to say Polynomial Root Finder. So I went to apps, I went to Poly Simulator 2, and then I'm picking Polynomial Root Finder. So I'm going to hit enter because that's what I want to do. Okay, this thing that says order right here means what's your highest power of x that you have. And in every one of these we have, it's going to be x squared for right now. So we would pick 2. You don't need to mess with any of these other things. You hit next. Okay, that should look very similar. That equation that pops up should look similar to what we were working in class. On the other paper, we wrote down that we had 1x squared plus 10x, which this one doesn't say that, so I need to scoot over and fix that. So this needs to be a 10. Okay, then it said 10x plus 24, so enter 24. Okay, then this nice little thing over here says, once I've got and it needs to say equal 0. Once I've got this right there, it says to solve it. Well, to get it to solve, you hit the graph button that's right underneath it, and it's going to tell you the answers. Right? What's different? It says that x1 is -4 and x2 is -6. What's different about this than what we had? These are both negative, right? And when we plugged it into our formula, they were positive. And I'm going to talk to you more about why that is the way it is, but you can work it this way. You're just going to need to know that you have to flip those back to positive whenever you plug it in. Okay, do both of you have, is that working on y'all's calculator? Okay, awesome. Okay, I'll help you with that in a little bit. Lab time, and I'll help you get that situated. Okay, so let's go back and look at another one. So that's 2 different ways that we could work this. Okay, let's do at least a couple more, and then I'm gonna move to 4.6, or 4.5, which turns it up a notch. So here's the next problem. We've got x squared minus 13x plus 30. This one's a little bit different because now we've got this negative here, which we're not used to dealing with, but we still have to be able to kind of set the problem up and go, okay, we need something that multiplies to 30 and adds to get me -13. And on the calculator, the way that it's helping you is it tells you automatically what those numbers are, right? Because you're looking for the -13. So I could start brainstorming about this, and I could go, what multiplies to 30? Well, 3 times 10, that's 30. But what I'm noticing is that I need it to add to be a negative number. So how is that going to work? 2 numbers that multiply to be a positive but add to be a negative. What ways do we get numbers that multiply to be positive? They either both have to be positive or they both have to be negative, right? And the only way that I would get a number to add to be negative is if the 2 numbers are negative. So so maybe if I did -3 times -10, well, that's still -30. But when I add them, that would get me my -13 that I needed. And I could keep brainstorming through this, but this is the answer, right? -3 or -3. Yes, thank you. -3 times -10 is definitely +30. And I can keep brainstorming about it, but we found the answer. So we would come over here and say, well, it's x minus 3 and then x minus 10. Now, the one thing I do like about not doing the polyroot thing, we're going to do them both ways. It actually gives you the answer and you don't have to go backwards, right? So what we would want to plug in our calculator is y equals 30 divided by x, because that's the number it multiplies to, and y equals 30 divided by x plus x. And when we're doing that, we're looking for that last row, that Y2 column, we're looking for whenever it's equal to negative 13, which is the middle right here, right? Okay, so I'm going to go to my calculator real quick and let's, so I'm going to go to my Y equals. This time we said it was a 30 we wanted. So want something that multiplies to be 30, but we want it to add to be negative 13. So I'm just typing in my 30 divided by x and then 30 divided by x plus x. I'm going to go second graph. Okay, and remember that we're looking for this Y2 column to be equal to whatever they're supposed to add to. And we said they were supposed to add to negative 13. So you might have to scroll up and down until you get Y2 is equal to negative 13 with your little arrows here. But there it is, negative 3 and negative 10. So I know that's the answer. Okay, I could do it that way. The other way is to go apps. Okay, let me get out of this screen. Second graph, hit apps. We want to use number 9. And I'm not going to keep working these over and over again using this, but I will do this one this way. Enter. And we would type, keep going, because we, okay, so this equation was actually x to the x squared. So 1x squared, plus, minus, this needs to be minus this time. Remember, if you would say minus, type in minus, don't type in negative. 13, and then plus 30, and then we would hit graph because that means we're going to solve it. And it tells us our answers are 3 and 10. And remember, when you do this, it's the opposite of what they're supposed to be. You should be getting negative 3 and negative 10, okay? So there's how you do that on the graphing calculator. Let's do one more of these from 4.4. And then I'm going to turn it up a notch. Actually, I might do 2 more. I don't know that I'm going to go to the calculator for every one of these, though, now that I've kind of shown that. As long as, because I'm going to show you how to do it again using a 4.5. So let's clear this screen. So here's another problem. Okay, x squared x squared minus 8x minus 9. This is interesting because both of these are negatives. So we're looking for something that multiplies to give me negative 9, that adds to give me negative 8. Okay, so on this one, if it's going to multiply to give me a negative number and add to give me a negative number, that means one of them is going to have to be positive and the other is going to have to be negative. So let's just start thinking of things that multiply to give me negative 9. Negative 1 times 9, that's negative 9. 1 times negative 9, that's also negative 9. 3 times negative 3, that's negative 9. That's about all I can think of. We could reverse the 3's. But then when we add those, negative 1 plus 9 would be negative 8. 1 plus negative 9 would give me negative 8. Jalen, you didn't catch my mistake. That needs to be a positive 8, right? And then 3 plus negative 3, well, that's 0. So the one that has to be right is this one that adds to be negative 8, that multiplies to be negative 9. So we need a 1 and a negative 9. So our answer would be x plus 1, because the 1's positive, and x minus 9. We were going to work this on the calculator. We would type in the calculator, y equals negative 9 divided by x, and the second one, y2, would be equal to negative 9 divided by x plus x. Let's go there real quick just so that we can, so I can show you this one more time. And we're looking for, remember that we want on our table, we're looking for the answer or the y2 category to be negative 8. Okay, so changing this time to a negative 9. It's not minus 9, because you would say negative 9 on both of these. Okay, and I'm hitting second table or second graph so I can look at my table. And remember that we're looking for an answer that is equal to negative 8. So I see it right here about middle way down my screen, and it says 1 and negative 9, which were the answers, right? So that's how you can do it on the calculator. I'm not going to do the app this time, but we'll talk about, so you just type over the apps, you go to Polyroot Simulator and do that if you want to do it that way. So that is 4.4. Y'all ready to turn it up a little bit? Okay, so you would know how to do this. Now 4.5, it's not that it's that much harder, but we're adding a number in front of x squared this time, which is the reason that it gets a little bit more complicated. So let's go back and look at, so 4.5. Okay, first problem. 8 x squared plus 2x minus 3. When you're doing this, if there's a number in front of the x squared and it's not 1 anymore, okay, we have one small adjustment that we need to make. This number in the front gets to be multiplied by the number in the back. So 8 times negative 3, and that is negative 24, and that's what goes at the top. So it's no longer just put the negative 3 up there, okay? We want to do 8 times negative 3, which is negative 24. Y'all with me? 8 times negative 3, which is negative 24, okay? The number in the middle still goes at the bottom. Okay, so we need something that multiplies to give us negative 24 and adds to give us 2. Okay, we could list these all out if we want to. I know if it's going to multiply to be negative and add to be positive, one of them is going to have to be negative and the other is going to have to be positive, right? So there's a lot of things that would work that would multiply to be negative 24. We could do negative 1 times 24. We could do 1 times negative 24. We could do 2 times negative 12. We could do negative 2 times 12. 3 times negative 8. Negative 3 times 8. 4 times negative 6, negative 4 times negative 6, all of those multiply to be negative 24. Okay, do any of them add to be 2? I'm looking down this list right here, and this needed to say negative 4 times positive 6, but this would be it, right? These two multiply to be negative 24, but if you add negative 4 plus 6, you would get 2, which is what we're supposed to get, right? Okay, so I hope you're paying attention. So we're going to put negative 4 and 6 right here, Okay, this one has one extra step. If there's a number in front of the x squared, we multiplied the first and the last. We put it at the top. That was the first thing we had to do that was different. Now, the second thing we have to do is we have to divide. So we can't just come here and say x minus 4, x plus 6. That's not it. That's not the answer. Okay, so we need to divide this number, whatever we get right here, that multiplies to be negative 24 and adds to 2. We have to divide it by our leading coefficient, which is 8. We're dividing both of those numbers by 8. Okay, we're going to reduce this fraction. Negative 4/8 is the same thing as negative 1/2 because we could divide the top by 4 and the bottom by 4. Are y'all good with that? 6/8 will reduce to 3/4 because we could divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2 and get 3/4. So these are actually the two numbers that I'm working with. So negative 1/2 was one of the numbers I'm working with, and 3/4 is the other number I'm working with when I write my parentheses. Okay. So how you're going to go about doing this is the number, the denominator. The number on the bottom goes in the front of the x. The number in the numerator goes in the back. And if it's a negative 1, it's going to be minus 1. On the 4 part, the number on the denominator is going to go in the front with the x. The 3 part goes in the back, and it's a positive 3, so it's plus 3. If we were going to multiply this back out, we would get what we started with. Okay? So the things that made this different is we had to multiply the first term and the last term to get what we needed to multiply by, and then in the end, we had to divide by whatever was in that front to get our answers. Okay, on the next one, I'll tell you a little bit more about how to go about this on the calculator because it's going to be a little bit different and we'll work it 2 different ways with the calculator. Okay, does anybody need me to slow down? Y'all are good right now? Okay, I'm going to clear this example out. This one will go all the way through with the calculator and everything. So here's our problem that we're supposed to factor: 4x squared plus 16x plus 15. Okay, there's a number in front of the x squared, which means I'm going to have to do 4 times 15 to get the number I'm supposed to multiply, and 4 times 15 is 60. So we need something that multiplies to 60, but it's still going to have to add to be our 16. Add to be 16, okay? Is it okay if we go straight to the calculator on this one? Right, we need something that multiplies to 60 and adds to 16. What are we gonna, instead of having to brainstorm everything, we're just gonna go straight to the calculator. So we're gonna type in y1. It's still gonna need to be our number on the top. So the y1 would be 60 divided by x. Y2, I like this a little bit better than the poly root finder thing just because it actually tells you the answer and you don't have to switch it to the opposite of whatever it is, but we'll do it both ways. But we've got 60 divided by x over 60 divided by x plus x. And what we're looking for, right, what we're trying to find is whenever our table has that Y2 category, it needs to say 16, it needs to add to 16, that middle term. So this is what our goal is on the calculator, to find 2 things that when we do this, that Y2 category is going to add to 16. So let me go there. Okay, so I'm going to clear this screen out. Second mode will get you to quit and go back what you needed to. So remember we had 60 over x. And then this one was also 60 over x plus x. We want to look at the table, so second graph. And the goal was that we got the middle term to be 16. So we're looking down this y category and we need to find a 16. Okay, and I'm seeing it, but I'm getting lucky. Usually you have to do some like scrolling with your ups and downs, but I see it right there, 6 and 10. There's my 16 that I was looking for. So 6 and 10 is what I need to go back to my paper with. Now that's not the answer. Remember on these it's a little bit more tricky because we had a number in front of the x squared. But I can go back into my paper and go, okay, I've got this part of it, the calculation. This was 6 and this is 10. Right from my calculator. I know that 6 times 10 is 60 and 6 plus 10 is 16. Now, to finish this problem, remember that you've got to take whatever was in the front, which is our leading coefficient, and you have to divide both of these by that leading coefficient. You reduce the fraction, so you go, well, 10 over 4, right? 10 over 4 is the same thing as 5 over 2, because we could divide the top by 2 and we could divide the bottom by 2. And on this one, 6 over 4, we could divide those both by 2 and get 3 halves. So these two numbers, those are the reduced fractions. I'm going to write them down here just because, so I make sure. So 3 over 2 and 5 over 2 were the two numbers that we needed to work with. So you make your parentheses. Remember that the number on the bottom, and I could have mixed these up, it doesn't matter. I could have listed 5 over 2 first and then 3 over 2 next. But remember that you want to put the number on the bottom first with the x, and then this is a positive 3, so we would have plus 3 goes in the back. Number on the bottom goes in the front. The top goes in the back, and it's plus 5. So those two multiply back to give me this. Okay, are you good? How do we, let's do the Pauli root simulator one on this one, okay? Just so I can show you how it looks a little bit different, but you can still get the answer that way. So if I go to my Pauli root simulator, I'm going to apps, want number 9, enter. This is still it's order 2 because it's an x squared, it's the highest exponent. So I would hit graph for next, and I'm just plugging in my equation, which was 4x squared plus 16 x, and then it was plus 15. Okay, and then I hit graph, so it'll solve it for me. And these are the two answers it's given me, -3 halves and -5 halves, which is nice, but you're going to have to remember that when we go back and look at our problem, that it gave me that Pauli root finder. It gave me the answers -3 over 2 and -5 over 2. So you've got to remember that you have to do the opposite, right? When you plug in your equation. Okay. Okay, let's work another one. Okay, here's one. We've got 5x squared minus 9x minus 2. There's a number in front of the x. So if there wasn't, I could just come over here and put -2 up here, but there's a number in front of the x, so I have to multiply these two. 5 times -2 is -10. This number in the middle goes on the bottom. So I'm looking for two things that multiply to give me -10 and add to give me -9. In the calculator, I would go y1 equals -10 divided by x. Y2 is equal to -10 divided by x plus x. And I'm looking for my table I want in that category where Y2 is, I need it to be -9. That's okay, so that's what we're looking for. So I'm going to go to Y equals. And this time we said that we had -10 in the front. And then on the bottom, we also have -10. And then divided by, oh, I'm sorry, and this needs to be divided by X. Okay, then you hit second graph, and remember we're looking for that middle column. We want our Y2, we want to find where it's -9. And on mine, it's at the very top up here, 1 and -10. So there's my combination that I'm looking for, 1 and -10, because I'm looking for it to be -9. So I'm going to go back, and I'm going to plug in the things that I found, which was 1 and -10. Okay. Then I'm going to go to, remember that I've got to divide this by my leading coefficient. So I've got to put a 5 here, and I've got to put a 5 here. 1/5 is already reduced. I can't really reduce that fraction. This -10/5, well, that reduces to -2. So my two numbers are 1/5 and -2. So I could put 5. Don't know how I did that, sorry. Remember that you want this number on the denominator to go first, so it would be 5x, and the number on the top goes in the front, +1. And then this doesn't, if I wrote this as a fraction, it would be -2/1, so it would be 1x, which we don't have to put the 1, but then it would just be -2. And that would be the answer to that. Okay. If we had to work this problem on the polyroot finder thing, it would have given us these opposite answers. It would have said -1/5 and +2, and we would need to know that we have to switch them before we put them in our formula. It's going to give you the opposite of what you have because it actually solves the problem. It doesn't just factor, it's solving. Okay, so that's that problem. So this, I'm going to stop this recording, but I'm going to go ahead and give you guys a couple more examples if you want to see how to do this, or if you're still curious about it. Hold on one second.